Antic's frightened expression quickly fades as she actually finds the situation somewhat funny. A few days later, the twins return from their journey. Upon their arrival, Atao is seen scolding Takuto for giving them too much freedom during the mission. She is furious that Takuto abandoned his pile of work just to monitor the twins through the eyes of the medics. Takuto defends himself, saying he only did it because he didn't want to be too strict and make the twins hate him. That excuse only fuels Atao's anger. She reminds him that it is not his place to pamper the girls to that extent, since he is their king, not their father. Atao then turns her anger toward the twins, demanding to know why they conspired with King Takuto behind her back. After that, she directs her scolding at the medics, calling them out for skinning a human alive right in front of the mayor. The medics, however, show no remorse, claiming that such actions bring them one step closer to becoming human themselves. Hearing that, Atao explodes and screams at them to shut up. Following this, everyone, including King Takuto, kneels before her as she orders them to reflect on the poor decisions they made. Takuto admits that the medics may have been a bad influence on Maria and Karia, since they were the ones who gave the order to kill in front of the mayor. Atao continues her lecture, saying this is exactly what happens when they are sent on missions without proper supervision. She then declares that none of them are to move until they finish writing statements acknowledging they understand the consequences of their actions. Hearing this, everyone just sighs in defeat. A few hours later, they gather for a meeting to discuss what should be done about Dragon. However, Takuto interrupts by handing candy to Maria and Karia, which causes Atao to snap again, shouting that they must not feel any regret at all. But Gia and the other dark elves redirect her focus, saying they understand her anger but believe the meeting should take priority. Realizing the sense in their words, Atao calms down and tells them to continue. Moltar then speaks up, asking the twins if their investigation in Dragon went exactly as written in the report. Karia confirms, adding that King Takuto himself reviewed it, so she is certain it's accurate. Moltar looks it over and concludes that the city seems very unstable. Emily joins in, saying Dragon lacks the resources to maintain proper order, which is why crime has been on the rise. From her perspective, it's only a matter of time before the city suffers a major disruption. Atao reviews the report as well and notes that, on top of everything, Dragon is also facing outside attacks from barbarians. According to the report, the city is dealing with monsters such as goblins, orcs, and hill giants. Gia says the goblins and orcs aren't much of a problem, but the real issue lies with the hill giants. They've started appearing in groups near the city, and worse, their numbers seem to be steadily increasing every day. Atao asks what they mean by suddenly appear, but Moltar explains that the monsters don't literally materialize out of nowhere. It only seems that way to Dragon's people because of their weak detection abilities. Beastmen are known for their sharp senses when it comes to detecting approaching enemies, but Moltar guesses the ones in Dragon aren't putting their abilities to use, likely because they're exhausted. Gia concludes that no matter how you look at it, Dragon is on the verge of collapse. Because of this, he suggests dispatching a large force as quickly as possible to support the city. Emily agrees with Gia's suggestion, but points out that splitting their forces would leave them short on manpower for important tasks like construction and farming. In response, Gia suggests sending most of their warriors instead, but before Emily can share her thoughts, Atao interrupts, declaring that no matter who they choose to dispatch, she herself will also be going. Moltar hears this and assumes it's because of her ability to steal skills. Atao confirms, saying that if she goes to the battlefield, she should be able to acquire some very useful abilities. King Takuto agrees, adding that it would also be a good chance for Atao to grow stronger, which is why he had already planned to send her with the troops. Moltar responds by saying that if that's the case, he should be entrusted with providing the retinue. Atao agrees, confident she can trust Moltar with the negotiations and coordination. Still, she stresses the need for more men on the ground. Hearing that, Moltar suggests bringing some of his apprentices along, since they're skilled enough to handle routine attacks. Atao is pleased with the idea. However, Emily remains concerned, noting that until now their national defense has depended heavily on Atao's presence. Hearing this, Gia clenches his teeth and admits he can't deny it. Takuto then speaks up, saying he's aware of the issue, which is why they'll be creating a new hero, Isla, the new cornerstone of their defense. Everyone is shocked at the announcement. Moltar rises to commend King Takudo, calling it another brilliant decision. Emily agrees, saying Takudo must truly be wise to have anticipated this situation back when he first began production. Takudo admits that while the timing worked out perfectly, it wasn't the result of some master plan, it just happened by chance. The elves bow in respect at his honesty, but in that moment, Takudo realizes that as a king, sometimes pretending to be almighty is still necessary. Even so, he knows he made the right choice in allowing the Dark Elves to participate in these meetings. His current life is nothing like his past, when he had to carry the weight of every decision alone. Atao asks if he has anything more to add, and Takudo stands to declare that everything is perfect, just as they've decided. The Dark Elves feel honored to receive praise from their king, and promise they will not let him down. A few hours later, everyone gathers outside, and Atao is especially excited. They're finally about to create the new hero. Takudo shares her excitement, admitting that although they had to ration heavily to secure the resources, it was completely worth it. Karya asks Takudo what kind of person the summoned hero will be. Takudo admits he has no idea, saying it will be a surprise he's looking forward to. After that, Takudo and Atao begin speaking telepathically. Takudo asks her what will happen with Isla. Atao replies that since Isla will be the very first hero they've summoned since arriving in this world, there's no way to predict her nature. She adds that if Isla rebels and tries to attack, she will protect Takudo with her life. As Takudo begins the summoning process, he continues telepathically, telling Atao not to risk her life. If Takudo were to lose her, he wouldn't be able to resummon her. A purple cloud forms and condenses into a cocoon, out of which Isla emerges. Atao isn't sure how Isla will react, though she believes the chances of hostility are slim. Isla appears in the form of a giant mantis, and the moment she rises, she unleashes a deafening roar, forcing Takudo and the others to keep their guard up. But then, Isla walks straight to Takudo and acknowledges him as her king. Thanking him for summoning her, she says she's overjoyed to serve Takudo once again. Excited, Takudo asks if she actually remembers him. Isla confirms, even calling him by name to prove it. Atao steps forward, demanding Isla vow to serve Takudo without rebellion. Isla simply pats Atao's head in a playful manner, saying she doesn't need to be so serious. Of course, she vows to serve King Takudo. She adds that the time she spent with him before arriving in this world has been etched into her very being. Hearing this is proof enough that Isla remembers him from before. She explains there's no way she could ever forget him, since he was the only one capable of drawing out her full power. After that, she asks Takudo to explain the current situation. Takudo takes her into the palace and gives her a full breakdown of everything that's happened. He admits there's still much she doesn't understand, but thanks to Atao, he's managed to get by. Atao blushes, saying she's only here because of him anyway. With that, Isla says she understands her role is to protect their nation. Takudo confirms, telling her she's their defense hero, while the attack hero will be the one to destroy the barbarians and dragon. Atao knows going on the mission is the best call, but she can't help feeling sad about leaving him. Takudo admits he'll miss her too, but reminds her she's the best one for the job. Realizing this will be their first time apart since arriving in this world, they hug tightly, confessing how much they'll miss each other. Meanwhile, Isla simply watches them and remarks that she should probably give them some privacy. The next day, Atao waves goodbye to Takudo and the others as she heads off to Dragon with the warriors. After she leaves, Isla finally speaks up, saying it's about time she got to work. She bows respectfully and tells Takudo to leave everything to her. A few hours later, Isla notices Takudo isn't as sharp as usual without Atao around. Earlier, she even caught him sleeping, so she asks what has him so tired. The twins chime in, explaining that Takudo always sleeps in until noon, even when he hasn't done anything tiring the day before. Isla sighs and teases him, saying he's acting like a baby standing in front of her. She reminds him he's the leader of a great nation. If his people ever found out he slept until noon and had to be woken up, what would they think? She tells him to start waking up early from now on. Takudo just nods and says he'll try his best. Karya comments that Isla is really different from Atao, since Atao always let Takudo do whatever he wanted. Isla ignores the remark and instead asks to borrow the twins for a while. She wants them to show her around since she's still unfamiliar with Mynoghra's main facilities. Takuro assumes Isla wants to see things firsthand instead of just reading a map, so she can form a clearer picture of the nation. With that in mind, he agrees, and the twins eagerly scurry off with Isla to give her the tour. Just then, Emily walks over to Takuro with a revised report, asking for his approval. As Takuro accepts it, he realizes this might actually be the first time he's spoken to someone alone without Atao. After looking it over, he tells her the report is solid, but he wants some changes. Starting next week, he wants her to reduce the manpower in gathering and redirect it elsewhere. Emily bows and says she'll follow his orders immediately. Gia then walks in, asking for his approval on their report. Takuro just rolls his eyes, realizing it's going to be a very long day. Meanwhile, as the twins guide Isla through the facilities, she asks them to explain everything they know about the place. Just as they begin, they bump into Emily, who's clearly upset. She complains that Gia has broken their training equipment again. It's been frustrating having to scrape together the budget to replace things each time. Isla just pats Emily's head and promises to scold Gia later. Judging by Emily's expression, she's definitely enjoying the head pats. At the training ground, Gia is once again showing off his strength, breaking everyone's weapons in a single slash. He turns on his team, scolding them for their sloppy form, saying they'll never be able to protect Mynoghra at this rate. That's when Isla suddenly appears behind him. She tells him to think twice before destroying the equipment. Gia apologizes and tries to explain himself, but Isla simply pats his head and says that forgetting himself so quickly just proves he's still a child. Embarrassed, Gia politely asks her to stop patting him, since it makes him look less intimidating in front of his soldiers. Suddenly, a loud banging sound echoes nearby. Isla stays alert and asks what it is, but the twins quickly run over to tell her it's just the signal for dinner. They all head to the dining area, where the dark elves are already gathered and eating. Some of them bring out a table and fine dishware for Isla to use since she outranks them, but she refuses. Instead, she sits on the floor and says she'll use the same dishware as everyone else. As a defense hero, she believes she can only do her job properly if she shares the same perspective as the people. Maria and Karia are moved by this. They run off for a bit and return with a special wooden plate they made themselves, offering it as a gift. Isla finds the gesture adorable, so she hugs them both and gives them head pats. The girls admit they were starting to feel jealous seeing everyone else get pats while they didn't. Later that night, Isla is on patrol when she hears someone crying. She goes to the door and finds Karia crying, with Maria trying to comfort her. Maria explains that Karia woke up from a bad dream. Isla praises Maria for being such a good big sister, then asks for details. The twins confess they often dream of their mother. Karia knows there's nothing she can do about what happened, but sometimes she can't help reliving those painful memories. Still, they reassure Isla not to worry, saying those dreams happen much less often now. Tonight was the first time in a long while. Isla gently comes up with an idea. From now on, she'll sleep beside them. That way, when they wake up, she'll be right there, and they won't have to be scared. She embraces them warmly, promising that she'll always be there for them. The next day, Isla reports to Takuro. After discussing with Emily, she recommends building a learning institute as their next project. Takuro agrees, adding that after that, they'll construct the living reeds. Isla notes that the forest terrain already gives the dark elves an advantage, and the cursed land strengthens all evil beings. Takuro agrees, saying that since they're not at war, there's no need to rush strengthening their defenses. Finally, Isla asks how things are going with Atao. Takuro smirks, saying she seems to be in a rather amusing situation. Using telepathy, he peers through Atao's eyes and sees she's just about to slaughter the barbarians. Dozens of giants charge straight at Atao. For anyone else, this would be terrifying, but for her, it's nothing more than a nuisance. With a casual wave of her tentacles, every giant is instantly torn apart into chunks of meat. Antic is both amazed and horrified by the display. It's even more terrifying than the medic incident, and she can barely hold herself together. Sensing this, Atao tells her she can take a break if she wants. The front lines are already under control. Antic gratefully accepts. Afterwards, Atao sits down with Molter, and the citizens of Dragon treat her warmly. One even brings her a drink so she can relax. Molter admits he thought the townsfolk would be too afraid to approach her after seeing her true form, but surprisingly, they've adjusted well. The main reason? When Atao first revealed herself, Pippa compared her to an octopus, so now everyone just thinks of her as an octopus demi-human. Attu finds it a little insulting, but at this point, correcting them isn't worth the effort. Changing the subject, Molter asks how her plan to harvest abilities from the giants is going. Attu replies it's been a great success. Their skills are far better than she expected. Still, she can't figure out how the giants gained such powers in the first place. Just then, Attu senses something in the distance. A giant is approaching the city. This is one of the mysteries about the giants. No matter how hard they monitor, no one, not even Attu or Molter, can detect them until they're already too close. Moments later, Antic rushes in with news of the giant, but Attu calmly says there's no need to worry, she'll handle it herself. She dashes toward the battlefield before Antic can protest. Antic fears Attu is being reckless, but Molter reassures her. Something as weak as a hill giant could never defeat Attu. He suggests waiting, though he admits it'd be boring to just sit back. Molter joins in, pulling out his staff. Using his newly learned magic, he casts Land of Ruin, summoning a dark mist that buffs allies and weakens enemies. Attu appreciates the support and takes full advantage of it. She draws her sword, channels the stolen holy sword arts, and cleaves the giant clean in two. It's a routine victory, until something strange happens. The giant's body vanishes, leaving behind a pile of gold coins. Shocked, Attu reports this to Takuto, who has no idea why such a thing would happen. This was never a mechanic in his Mynoghra playthroughs. Molter is equally baffled. Not only has he never seen this phenomenon, but no one even recognizes the symbols stamped on the coins. Takuto then has an idea. He asks Attu to share her vision with him so he can examine the coins personally. After studying them closely, a memory clicks. These coins are identical to the currency from an RPG he once played, Brave Quest. Meanwhile, in the far north, the Saint and her knights march through a city recently destroyed by Ireno. As the knights investigate the ruins, their inspection is cut short. Every one of them suddenly has their brains blown out. The one responsible is Ireno herself, but this marks the 17th time the Saint has faced her, and she still can't understand why the woman just won't stay dead. Ireno corrects her with a twisted smile. She has been dying, in fact. The Saint has already killed her 17 times. But that doesn't make it any less unfair in her eyes. The Saint's strength is overwhelming, while Ireno's own power, though formidable, never comes close. Each death is excruciating, and she resents it deeply. The Saint cuts her off, saying she knows Ireno is just stalling for time. Realizing she's been caught, Ireno acts. She seizes control of every corpse in the ruined city, including the knights who were just slain, and orders them to attack. The Saint is disgusted by such grotesque sorcery, but it changes nothing. Raising her staff, she summons a massive storm of flames, reducing the undead army to ash in an instant. Without hesitation, she charges forward and drives her weapon straight through Ireno's chest. This makes it the 18th time the Saint has killed her. And though she knows Ireno will inevitably return, at least this victory buys her enough time to devise a permanent solution. Meanwhile, back in Dragon, panic spreads through the guards. A massive army of giants has appeared near the city, far more than anyone has ever seen gathered in one place. By now, Takuto has pieced things together. The attackers must have come from the world of Brave Quest. In that game, encounters are randomly generated, which explains why there were never any warning signs before the giants appeared. Isla had considered the possibility of encountering enemies brought into this world the same way they were, but she never imagined they'd come from a completely different genre of game. The system of Eternal Nations is very different from Brave Quest, but Takuto has experience with both, giving him a decisive advantage. Up on a nearby cliff, the masterminds behind the attack, Flamin and Ice Rock, watch the chaos unfold. They were granted complete freedom to do whatever it takes to conquer this land in the name of their demon lord. Their arrival in this world was fortunate. All the goblins and giants immediately flocked to their banner, swelling their demon army with overwhelming numbers. But Ice Rock hesitates. They had devoted their entire lives to conquering Brave Quest. Should they really abandon that mission to start over in this new world? Flamin, however, isn't one for deep thoughts. He dismisses the concern, saying the only thing that matters is carrying out the Demon Lord's will. With that, the two prepare to unleash their forces on Dragon, intent on drowning the land in despair. All the monsters charge at Ice Rock's command, and he asks Flamin if he'll be joining the battle as well. But Flamin says he'd rather sit this one out so that Ice Rock can have the honor of leading. Ice Rock thanks him, then leaps onto the battlefield. While he's gone, Flamin begins working on his secondary goal for the mission. On the battlefield, Ice Rock orders his troops to lay waste to the city. But suddenly, a thick black smoke covers the area, causing every monster to choke violently. Shocked, Ice Rock and his mage assistant Oslo realize they've never seen a spell like this before. Judging by the effect, Oslo deduces that it must be a spell meant to empower evil line fighters, since the neutral monsters are suffering while the demons like himself and Ice Rock are actually getting stronger. A moment later, Oslo is stabbed through the abdomen by one of Atu's tentacles. With him taken care of, she turns her full attention toward Ice Rock. Takuto has already mentioned something about a warrior of ice, so Atu assumes Ice Rock must be one of the Demon Lord's 4 generals. Ice Rock demands to know how she figured out his identity so quickly. Atu explains calmly that she is a hero from the game Eternal Nations, serving under her glorious king Takuto. There's no point in dragging it out because she intends to kill everyone here soon. Back at the city walls, Antic gathers the soldiers and orders them to fire their arrows at the advancing army. But their barrage looks utterly pathetic, so she changes tactics and commands them to evacuate the citizens. They'll have to abandon the city. Just then, Moltar arrives. Amused, he remarks that Antic is already thinking of fleeing, but she insists it's their only option. Moltar's spell may have slowed the enemy, but it won't hold forever. Once the monsters reach the walls, there's no way they can hold them off. Moltar understands her fear, but he assures her there's no need to panic. Atu is already on the battlefield, and as long as she's there, defeat is impossible. Soon, she'll claim the enemy general's head. Without a commander, the monster army will collapse into chaos, and Dragonton's forces will finish them off with ease. Antic is astonished by Moltar's calm confidence, but when she looks out at the battlefield, she sees Atu tearing through the enemy forces with ease. Suddenly, everything he said makes sense, and she starts to realize just how powerful Mynoghra truly is. Meanwhile, Atu is absolutely humiliating Ice Rock. She evades every one of his attacks while slaughtering monsters left and right. Ice Rock can't comprehend how she's able to overwhelm him so completely without him landing a single blow. But she's simply following the plan Takuto devised. Brave Quest was designed as an RPG with small-scale combat mechanics, while Eternal Nations is a civilization simulator, giving its heroes far greater range and power than anyone from Brave Quest could ever match. Frustrated, Ice Rock yells at Atu, demanding to know why she's even interfering. Since she's clearly evil-aligned, shouldn't she also wish to serve the Demon Lord and conquer the world? To be honest, there was a time when both Atu and Takuto considered world conquest. But they quickly abandoned the idea because it would be far too much work. She was already constantly buried in paperwork as it was. So why on earth would she want to manage the entire world? Honestly, Ira almost lost it at the word paperwork because she didn't even know that was a thing. She asked Ice Rock how they expected to run the world once it was conquered. Then she joked that Ice Rock must have been one of those RPG characters. No one bothered giving a proper backstory. Ice Rock had no idea what she meant by RPG. So Ira tried jogging his memory, reminding him of all the countless times he must have died at the hands of the game's hero. After all, he was nothing more than a mid-level boss. She mocked him, saying it must suck to exist solely to be defeated. And while she'd love to say she understood how he felt, she couldn't relate to a loser like him. All the while, she was effortlessly parrying Ice Rock's attacks. Enraged, he declared that he would crush all who opposed his mighty demon king. But Ira laughed and told him the only true ruler here was Takuto, the king of Mynoghra. She saw him charging up an attack and thought he was foolish for believing he could hit her with such a telegraphed move. However, when she tried to move away, she realized her feet had been frozen in place by Ice Rock's frost. She hadn't prepared for that at all, leaving her vulnerable as his axe came down. The strike did heavy damage, and Ice Rock felt proud of himself. But only a moment later, Ira got back up and killed him instantly. She felt ashamed that a weakling like him had managed to injure her, though her wounds healed almost instantly, so it wasn't a big deal. Still, she complained about how unfair Ice Rock's attack had been. How was she supposed to dodge a strike that froze her in place beforehand? After stealing his skill, she realized it was literally a guaranteed hit, meaning there was nothing she could have done. Anyway, it was time for her to give her report to Takudo. But when she tried contacting him, to her horror she realized something was terribly wrong. Enemies had gathered around Mynoghra. Meanwhile, elsewhere on the continent, the demon lord from Brave Quest is constructing his new castle, already making plans to conquer this new world. Back in Mynoghra, one of the dark elf guards rushes into Takudo's office to report that enemy forces are approaching. However, Takudo already knew about it and doesn't seem the least bit worried. Ira explains to the guard that one of Takudo's abilities allows him to know everything happening within his kingdom. As soon as the army entered the forest, Takudo had already ordered Gia to confront them with Mynoghra's main forces. Maria and Karia grow concerned about the situation and ask Takudo if Mynoghra is in danger. He calmly reassures them that there's nothing to worry about. He already has a plan. Isla then voices her concern that the demon lord leading the army might be another player like Takudo, but he couldn't care less. Normally, he would attempt a peaceful resolution, but since Atao already killed one of the Demon King's 4 generals and the enemy chose to attack his kingdom directly, he isn't going to show any mercy this time. With Isla, Gia, the Dark Elf warriors, healers, and the larvae created by Isla for construction, Takudo is confident they can hold their ground against the invading forces. Moments later, Takudo receives a message from Emily, who informs him that she has evacuated all non-combatant citizens. He's pleased with this, knowing it reduces the risk of civilian casualties. Soon after, Gia calls him from the front lines to give an estimate of enemy numbers. He reports about 1,000 troops, mostly orcs, goblins, and several strange creatures he has never encountered before. Takudo thanks him for the information and tells him to focus on defending the capital. Although 1,000 enemies are more than expected, Takudo suspects that one of the 4 generals must be among them. Still, he believes they can handle it. After all, if he could defeat Lost Lace and Silkong, then he can manage this too. Fortunately, Mynoghra has a decent stockpile of resources. Since Takudo knows the mechanics of Brave Quest, they already hold an advantage. Isla asks if he plans to use the resources to create new troops, but to her surprise, Takudo explains that he's investing all of them into her instead. He instructs her to level up as much as possible to acquire the predation and parasitic egg skills. With those, she should be able to devastate the enemy army. Based on what he observed during Atao's battle with the Ice General, Takudo has a rough idea of the general's strength. In her current state, Isla should be able to win, even if one of them appears. Honored by his trust, Isla vows to meet his expectations and prepares to fly into battle. Before she leaves, Takudo warns her to remain cautious, since the Brave Quest system contains unfair skills that could prove fatal if she is caught off guard. Ira recalls hearing about something similar happening to Atao, so Isla promises to stay extra careful. With nothing more to say, Takudo bids farewell as Isla departs after saying goodbye to the twins and the civilians. Meanwhile, deep in a forest, a group of fire demon soldiers marches toward Mynoghra. One of the Night's Wonders, a loud Y Flamen, ordered them to split from Ice Rock's group, just to invade such a creepy place. The mage explains that he suspects Flamen may have ordered this operation without the Demon Lord's permission, and there's a good chance he intends to betray him in the near future. The knight is shocked and asks why Flamen would do such a thing. The mage replies that while the rest of them simply appeared in this new world, things were different for Flamen and the Demon Lord. He is about to explain further when suddenly they hear something approaching. They see what appears to be one of the orc scouts sent to investigate the forest. But something is clearly wrong. Covered from head to toe in pulsating bumps, the orc begs for help, saying he doesn't understand what's happening. Before they can react, hundreds of Isla's larvae burst out from the orc skin and swarm toward the fire soldiers. In a panic, the soldiers attempt to fight back, but the overwhelming number of larvae leaves them helpless. The mage quickly orders a retreat so they can regroup outside the forest. Before they can escape, however, a voice calls out from the tree line, mocking them for retreating so soon. Terrified, the soldiers demand the attacker reveal themselves, only to be shocked by the sight of a 10-foot-tall mantis. Ira emerges from the forest and chastises them, saying that if they truly call themselves creatures of darkness, they should fight with more ruthlessness, just like she is about to demonstrate. Needless to say, the soldiers don't stand a chance, and within minutes, they are all slaughtered. Afterward, Isla debates whether their corpses are even worth eating, since they don't look very nutritious. Suddenly, she senses a strong presence approaching. When she turns, she finds Flamen, who seems unconcerned about the soldiers she just killed. He introduces himself as one of the Demon Lord's 4 generals. Isla is pleased. His arrival saves her the trouble of seeking him out. Flamen is surprised she anticipated his presence, but she explains that it was only natural. A large army like this must have a powerful commander, and without him, their morale would collapse, just as it did when Ice Rock was defeated at Dragton. Flamen shows little surprise at Ice Rock's death, calling him an idiot who was bound to die eventually. Isla interrupts, criticizing him for speaking ill of an ally, but Flamen admits he never liked Ice Rock anyway, declaring that he was the weakest of the generals. In contrast, Flamen claims he is far stronger and warns Isla not to assume she can win. Isla laughs at his arrogance, but Flamen doubles down, boasting that after killing her, he will drag Takudo from his throne and kill him too. Until now, Isla had been casual, but the moment Flamen disrespects Takudo's name, her mood changes completely. She is furious. Flamen notices but remains confident, powering up before leaping into the air to clash with her. Meanwhile, back in the city, the twins stand guard outside Takudo's office while he uses his powers to monitor the situation. He senses that Isla has begun her battle with Flamen, but he isn't worried. They've already confirmed that the attacks of Mynoghra's heroes are far superior compared to the RP combat system, so he believes it's only a matter of time before Isla wins, just as Atau did. Elsewhere, to the south, Gia and the Dark Elf warriors hold a defensive formation around the capital, preventing Flamen soldiers from advancing, while Imel manages the evacuation of civilians. On the surface, everything seems under control, but for some reason, Takudo can't shake the feeling that something is about to go terribly wrong. The twins notice that Takudo looks troubled, so they ask him what's wrong. However, he honestly can't figure out why he feels so uneasy. He asks if they can think of any variables he might have missed, but they have no idea what he's referring to. Meanwhile, back on the battlefield, Flamen and Isla have been fighting for several minutes now. Flamen is impressed, admitting he didn't expect the freaks in this world to be so strong. But hearing this bald, Voldemort-looking man call her a freak enrages Isla, so she unleashes a swarm of larvae that cling to his body. Normally, this would finish an enemy off, but Flamen burns them to ash with his fire magic and frees himself. He then jokes that it's unfair for Isla to be the only one who can summon minions. Moments later, a group of orcs and goblins materialize around him. Isla is shocked, realizing that Flamen can summon minions without consuming any resources, meaning he can do it indefinitely. Curious, she calls for a timeout to ask him a question, but Flamen ignores her and launches more fireballs, forcing Isla to block with her larvae. He then orders his minions to attack, but she quickly infects them with her parasites, turning them against him and forcing him to retreat temporarily. With some breathing room, she asks why he chose to attack Mynoghra, since splitting forces instead of focusing on Dragon was unwise. Flamen cryptically replies that if her master hasn't told her already, maybe she should reconsider who she serves. Isla, however, remains steadfast, declaring her unwavering loyalty to Takudo. Hearing this irritates Flamen, and he presses her about what she thinks her role is. She proudly declares herself a hero of Mynoghra and a loyal servant to King Takudo. This enrages Flamen further. He cannot understand how Isla can serve with such pride and conviction. Then it dawns on him. She serves out of her own free will, which is why she enjoys it. He, on the other hand, is bound by the coding of his game to serve the Demon Lord, regardless of his own will, and he despises it. Still, he believes that once he fulfills his mission to destroy this world, he will finally be freed from his forced servitude. Unleashing his full power, Flamen chases Isla through the skies with a torrent of fire, eventually landing a direct hit. Thinking he has won, he approaches, only to realize she protected herself with a cocoon. She mocks him, saying he'll have to try much harder if he hopes to defeat her. In desperation, Flamen unleashes rapid-fire attacks, but Isla easily dodges until he exhausts his mana and becomes defenseless. Seizing the opportunity, she slashes him across the chest. Realizing this is the end, Flamen recalls the strange being who spoke to him, and the demon lord before they were summoned here, promising him freedom if he destroyed this world. Now he understands that a puppet like him could never accomplish such a feat. Still, he refuses to give up. Moments later, Isla slashes him in half, defeating him once and for all. She immediately calls out to Takuto to report her victory, but suddenly loses contact. At that moment, Maria and Karia appear before her. Confused, Isla orders her larvae to protect the twins. But then, to her horror, Flamen's corpse begins to move again.
Takuto is completely stunned. The twins have vanished onto the battlefield, a feat that should be impossible. He quickly attempts to use his shared perception to contact them, but it doesn't work. Before he can even process what is happening, a system message suddenly pops up: chat function disabled. The realization sends a shiver down his spine. Meanwhile, Isla reacts swiftly. She orders her larvae to protect Maria and Karia. At first, the larvae swarm around the girls like a protective wall. But then, without warning, they scatter in panic, sensing an overwhelming presence. Isla tries to reach out to the brain eaters next, but they do not respond. She attempts to contact Takuto, yet even he fails to answer. Maria and Karia ask Isla what is happening. Instead of answering directly, she pulls them into a protective hug, reassuring them softly. She promises that they will escape without wasting another second. Carrying them into the air, she flies off. However, after some time and finally stopping to catch their breath, the sight that greets them sends chills down their spines. Flamen's body lies right in front of them. Somehow, they have been flying in circles this entire time. Suddenly, Flamen bursts out laughing. He sneers at Isla, mocking her. He taunts that it must feel terrible to be her right now, as she can no longer kill him. Isla refuses to believe it. Determined, she raises her mantis-like claw and slashes at him, aiming to end the fight. But before her strike can land, a barrier instantly forms, blocking her attack. Flamen laughs even louder, declaring that there is no point in trying anymore. She simply cannot kill him since he is, after all, already dead. At that very moment, Takuto receives another system message: auto-defend activated. Seeing this, he begins piecing things together, recalling everything Flamen had orchestrated during his time in Brave Quest. Back on the battlefield, Flamen mocks Isla again, calling her arrogant for thinking she could win so easily. Maria and Karia, visibly terrified, cling to each other. But Isla reassures them firmly that she will not let Flamen lay a single finger on them. Fueled by rage, Isla launches a furious storm of attacks. Her claws strike again and again, yet every blow bounces harmlessly off the barrier. Flamen simply laughs, savoring every second of her desperation. Suddenly, a strange red aura envelopes Isla and the twins. Before they can react, Maria and Karia begin walking toward Flamen. Their eyes show fear, but their bodies are no longer under their control. They are compelled by the aura. Isla desperately tries to pull them back, but she herself is restrained by the aura's power and cannot move freely. Flamen mocks them, explaining that resisting the aura is pointless. With a smug grin, he calls it one of his favorite RPG mechanics, a scripted event. The twins keep walking closer and closer to him, trembling, their faces twisted in fear. They glance back at Isla, silently begging her to save them because they do not want to die. The sight of their fear cuts Isla deeply. Summoning every last ounce of strength, she struggles violently against the aura, to the point that her body begins to bleed from the strain. Flamen, however, continues speaking over her effort, taunting her even more. Flamen laughs cruelly, declaring that all of them are fools, deluded into thinking they act by their own free will. His voice rises as he shouts directly at Takuto, claiming he knows Takuto is out there watching. He mocks him, insisting that his biggest mistake was underestimating him, and vows to kill Takuto's most precious citizens as the ultimate act of spite. Immediately after his words, a massive explosion erupts, engulfing everything in fiery light. The scene then shifts to a memory of the past. Maria and Karia are climbing the trunk of a tall tree, their eyes sparkling with excitement. When they reach the top, the world of Mynoghra stretches below like a breathtaking tapestry. From this high vantage point, they can see the entire civilization in all its beauty. As they admire the view, the clouds slowly shift and the moon comes into sight. Silver moonlight spills across the land, bathing Mynoghra in a glow that makes it appear almost otherworldly. The twins can't help but smile as they take it all in. Maria gently takes Karia's hand, and with soft determination, they promise each other that next time, they will bring Isla here too, because she deserves to see this view just as much as they do. But that promise fades in an instant. Suddenly, Maria and Karia awaken inside a massive crater, the aftermath of the explosion still lingering around them. At first, they are relieved to be alive. Relief quickly turns to horror when they turn and see Isla. Her body has been torn apart while shielding them from the blast. With a weak, fading voice, Isla calls out to them, asking if they are all right. Her lips curve into a faint smile when she sees they survived. The twins, however, are overwhelmed with worry and rush to her side. Korea insists that they must get her back to Mynoghra immediately. She tries contacting Takuto through shared perception, but there is no response. Why now? Of all times, why is Takuto not answering? Isla draws their attention, urging them to listen carefully. She tells them the truth they do not want to hear. It should already be clear that she will not survive. There is something important she needs to entrust to them. The twins immediately protest. They cannot accept this. They shout that there must be some way to save her, anything at all. But Isla shakes her head, whispering that there isn't. Her injuries are far too severe, beyond any hope of repair. Hearing this, Maria and Korea break down. They blame themselves, insisting it is their fault for being too weak to protect her, for not being able to fight by her side. They admit they had grown too comfortable, foolishly allowing themselves to believe they could finally live a happy, peaceful life. They had even started to think of Isla as a mother. All they had wanted was to live together with her in happiness. Why are they being punished with this cruel fate? Despite her pain, Isla comforts them. She assures them they have done nothing wrong. None of this is their fault, it is hers for not being strong enough. But the twins refuse to see it that way. Tears streaming down their faces, they tell Isla they do not want to live without her. If she dies, they would rather die alongside her. In her final moments, Isla makes a shocking move. She plunges her claw into her own chest and pulls out her heart. Blood runs down her arm, but she holds the glowing heart out in front of them. Her voice is filled with sorrow and love as she asks for their forgiveness for dying before them, for leaving them alone. She reminds them that sometimes fate simply cannot be controlled, and this is the cruel reality they have been forced into. With her last strength, she gives them a final request, to eat her heart. By doing so, they will inherit the skill royal succession. The heart pulses with light, glowing brighter and brighter in her palm as Isla declares that she is passing down all of her power to them. Her arm falls, and she collapses to the ground. The heart still glows faintly in her hand as her eyes close peacefully. In that quiet moment, Isla dies. On the battlefield, Isla stands on the front lines as waves of goblins advance. Behind her, Molter keeps pace, his massive footsteps crunching across the blood-stained earth. Isla glances at him with annoyance, telling him there was no reason for him to follow her all the way here. But Molter quickly protests. Takuto himself had ordered Molter to march alongside ATU and assist in destroying the Demon Lord's stronghold, so he had no choice but to comply. ATU brims with irritation but doesn't argue. She knows there is no time to waste, she must end this battle quickly and return to Takuto's side. As the goblins charge forward, ATU lashes out with her tentacles, cutting through the first wave of enemies with brutal efficiency. Just as she prepares to continue the assault, her entire body suddenly freezes. Her eyes widen in shock. She can no longer feel Isla's presence. Her energy is completely gone. That can only mean one thing: Isla is dead. ATU explodes in rage. Her tentacles thrash violently in every direction, tearing through goblins and scattering their corpses across the battlefield. Molter is stunned, unable to understand why she has gone berserk. He calls out, demanding to know what is happening. ATU finally responds, telling him that Isla has been killed. Far away, Takuto feels it too. His face twists in disbelief. Isla's death shouldn't even be possible in this world. He knows Flaman's scripted event mechanic is powerful, but even so, it should never have been usable here. Desperately, Takuto checks his inventory to confirm whether Isla is truly gone. Moments later, a system message appears: Isla's presence can no longer be detected. The words crush him. Takuto falls to his knees. The very idea of Isla being erased from existence is something he had never imagined possible. Meanwhile, back in the crater, Maria and Korea honor Isla's final wish. With tears streaming down their cheeks, they consume her heart. A radiant glow bursts from within them as Isla's power floods their bodies. They have inherited her strength. A few minutes later, the shared perception link reconnects. Takuto wastes no time. His voice cracks as he informs ATU of Isla's death, explaining the horrors of her final moments. Hearing this, ATU's chest tightens with guilt. She recalls the time she noticed Ice Rock using an RPG mechanic but failed to report it. If she had spoken up, Isla might have been more cautious, maybe she wouldn't have ended up dead. Through the telepathic link, ATU tells Takuto she will return to Mynoghra immediately. Isla's death isn't just a personal loss, it's a national emergency. She turns to leave, preparing to abandon the battlefield, but Takuto stops her. He explains that although Isla died, the twins survived. Right now, they are moving south, straight toward the enemy's stronghold. From what Takuto can see, it looks like they intend to avenge Isla's death. ATU clenches her fists, insisting it's impossible. The twins are far too weak to take on such an enemy. But Takuto interrupts her, revealing that before Isla died, she used the royal succession technique. Maria and Korea now carry her hero status within them. Takuto tells ATU they cannot afford to lose any more hero units at this stage. Her orders are simple: she must head to the battlefield and retrieve Maria and Korea immediately. ATU's face twists with frustration. She protests, begging Takuto to reconsider. The RPG mechanics they've encountered are far too dangerous. If the twins run into another one of those scripted events, their lives could end instantly. She doesn't want Takuto to gamble with them. Despite her protests, she bows her head and obeys. Takuto was once the greatest player of Eternal Nations. If anyone can make the right call in a crisis like this, it's him. ATU swallows her doubts and follows his orders, clinging to the hope that everything will work out. Meanwhile, Takuto receives reports from Gia and Emil. They inform him that they are nearly done mopping up the enemy survivors who dared to invade their land. On top of that, they've already evacuated all non-combatants and plan to begin repairs on the damaged facilities by tomorrow morning. But Takuto interrupts, telling them not to act on their own. From now on, he will personally issue every order at the necessary time. Gia and Emil glance at each other, unsettled. This isn't like Takuto at all. His usual style is to trust his commanders with initiative, yet now, he is tightening his grip completely. Elsewhere, Maria walks with an expressionless face across the battlefield until she arrives at the base of Lady Wind, one of the 4 demon generals. Lady Wind sneers at the sight of her, laughing at the absurd idea that a mere child could confront her alone. But Maria lifts her gaze. Her left eye glows bright red, radiating unnatural power. Just as Lady Wind's soldiers move in to eliminate Korea, Maria unleashes a wave of dark energy that bursts out, casting the entire squad into a trance-like state. They freeze, unable to resist. Korea speaks bitterly, admitting that she always knew something terrible would happen if they put their faith in anyone else. She should never have relied on hope at all. Lady Wind's arrogance begins to waver. Panic flickers in her eyes as she realizes how effortlessly Korea neutralized her entire unit. Desperate, she summons a powerful gust of wind and hurls it at Korea, but Korea nullifies it effortlessly. Then Lady Wind gasps, her palm, her skin, her entire body begins to melt. She collapses to the ground, screaming and begging for mercy. But Korea shows no reaction. She simply watches. Meanwhile, Maria finds herself surrounded by the enemy's top military units. Soldiers fire their strongest magic at her, but Maria spins gracefully, laughing as she blocks each attack like a child playing a game. One soldier calls for Magitech, the men in the massive iron battle suit. Realizing Maria's power, Magitech activates his suit's full combat mode. The iron giant roars to life, bristling with weapons. But before he can move, Maria smirks and snaps her fingers. Instantly, the robot's suit shuts down. The mage squad collapses uselessly, and Magitech himself freezes in confusion. None of them can function anymore. Maria takes a playful bite of the air. That simple gesture creates a razor-sharp slash that cuts through the Earth Mage squad instantly. She takes another bite, and the force shreds Magitech's armored suit into pieces. Now exposed, Magitech grovels on the floor, trembling in terror. Maria strolls toward him slowly, her lips curling into a twisted smile, and without hesitation, she finishes him off. When the massacre is over, the twins walk calmly away from the battlefield, their footsteps echoing in the silence left behind. Suddenly, a system message appears before them, marking the twins as the third-degree threat in this world. They even receive a title, the Witches of Regret. The other player from this world, a middle-aged man with blonde hair, fixes his sharp gaze on Maria and Korea as they approach. He wonders how fragile-looking children like them could possibly reach the same level of strength he has. To him, it feels as if fate itself is mocking him, and that is why he has decided to end everything here and now. Once he destroys everything and sacrifices the entire world, he believes he will finally obtain freedom, as per the pact he made with God. Before beginning the battle, the man asks them a question, whether they believe in the existence of God. The sisters reveal their glowing red eyes and, without hesitation, declare that such a thing does not exist. In response, the demon lord quickly places a powerful barrier around himself. But to his shock, the twins shatter it almost instantly. He is stunned because only the chosen hero should have the power to destroy that barrier. According to his agreement with the gods, the chosen hero was never supposed to exist in this world. So, how can there now be someone capable of breaking through his defenses? The twins remain silent. They don't answer his confusion and calmly continue walking toward him, prepared to fight. The demon lord then mutates into a grotesque beast, his body sprouting countless swords from his back like jagged spines. In this monstrous form, his confidence swells, certain that the two girls cannot possibly stop him. With arrogance, he launches the swords at them in a deadly volley. Yet, Maria does not flinch, her face carrying nothing but a confident, almost playful smile. She halts every single sword in midair, effortlessly stopping the demon lord's attack. Maria calls upon her magic, forcing the beast deep into the ground. With the enemy restrained, the twins seize a sword lying on the field and charge forward together. The demon lord tries to strike back, but Korea meets him head-on, and with a single swing of her blade, she destroys his arm completely. The force of the strike disintegrates half of his monstrous body. Yet, even in this desperate and ruined state, the demon lord refuses to surrender. His determination to honor his pact with God and claim peace and freedom drives him to keep fighting. The twins, however, only laugh at his desperation. They taunt him, insisting there is no such thing as God. Maria goes further, warning that believing someone will come to save you only leads to disappointment, a lesson they learned painfully from Isla. But then, to their surprise, the demon lord is suddenly healed. His wounds vanish in an instant, granted by the god he serves. Overjoyed, he prepares to speak his god's name in gratitude. But before he can utter a word, his body is sliced clean in half by an unexpected third party. The twins turn toward the stranger who interfered, demanding to know who he is and why he chose to intervene. The man calmly explains that he thought it looked like they needed help, so he decided to step in. Korea narrows her eyes, warning him seriously that his help was neither wanted nor necessary. The man raises his hands in defense, insisting he has no intention of fighting them. He even tries to lighten the mood, commenting that they look cuter when they're not angry, but smugly adds that they wouldn't stand a chance against him anyway, as they are far too weak at their current level. The twins glare back. They do not care what he says. This is the men who ruined their chance at atoning for Isla, and for that, he must pay. Fueled by fury, they leap into the air, ready to strike him down. But before they can land their blow, Atu suddenly appears, freezing their feet in place with her magic. She informs them that Takuto has given direct orders for them to return immediately, as their mission has already been accomplished. The twins shake their heads, refusing to comply. They argue that they still have unfinished business with the men who interfered. Atu, however, reminds them that Takuto's orders are not optional. To disobey him is unthinkable. Yet the sisters declare that they are no longer acting under Takuto's command. All that matters to them now is avenging Isla. Hearing this, Atu prepares to discipline them herself, determined to show the consequences of defying their king. But the girls push back, recalling Takuto's words that they could do whatever they wanted because they were evil. Yet, as they consider his words more carefully, they remember that he also told them to do whatever would make their mother happy. In that moment, realization strikes. They understand that fighting the men who interfered and making themselves enemies of Mynoghra is not what Isla would have wanted. With heavy hearts, they lower their weapons, apologize sincerely to Atu for their rudeness, and decide to hold back. Atu accepts their apology, telling them she is willing to let it go this time. The man who intervened also offers his own apology for butting in before quickly disappearing from the scene. Atu watches him leave and notices something odd. He was wearing a school uniform. If he truly is the person Takuto suspects, it is best to leave him be, at least for now. Afterward, the twins ask Atu if there is any chance that Isla might ever be resurrected. Sadly, Atu tells them resurrection is impossible. The answer breaks their hearts, and the sisters collapse into grief, crying for their loss. Atu prepares a report for Takuto, informing him that they are on their way back. Takuto responds with a blessing, wishing them a safe journey home. In the meantime, Takuto begins to realize something troubling. The mechanics of a 4x strategy game apply to this world as well. Until now, Takuto had been under the impression that only cheat skills were at play. But it was now clear that enemies were using RPG-style systems of their own. Worse still, countless game genres exist, meaning the possibilities for new threats are endless. Elsewhere, the mysterious man who had cut down the demon lord makes his way through the valley. Exhausted, he falls to his knees, trembling as he recalls how terrifying his encounter with Atu and the twins had been. He curses the god who brought him to this world, remembering how he was deceived. The god had told him that two beautiful girls were in danger, and all he had to do was save them. But the truth was nothing like what he expected. The girls turned out to be monsters in disguise. As he curses, a girl approaches him. His slave walks to his side and greets him warmly, addressing him as her master. She explains that the god has apologized for bringing him to this world by accident. The man grits his teeth and curses the god again, convinced this was no accident at all but a deliberate trick. After all, the only reason he ended up here in the first place was because of that god and his fateful encounter with Truck-kun. Still, despite his frustration, he admits there is at least one blessing. He has a cute slave he can now call his own. As they talk, a massive ogre suddenly appears behind him. Without even breaking a sweat, he cuts it down instantly, destroying it in record time. His overwhelming strength is all thanks to the cheat abilities granted to him by the god he despises, and for that, he feels at least a little grateful. His slave is left in awe of his true power. With renewed confidence, the men and the girl walk onward together, vowing to give saving this world a try. Meanwhile, in the ruins of the town, Isla has just been resurrected for the 19th time. The priest who has been battling her is left completely dumbfounded. She had incinerated Isla's body to ashes and even sealed it with powerful magic, yet Isla stands again, as if nothing had ever happened. Despite her confusion, the priest steels herself. She knows it is her sacred duty as a priest to vanquish Isla, no matter how many times it takes. Elsewhere, a die is tossed into a bowl, and in the next instant, the priest is struck down in a single blow. Isla herself is startled to see the priest fall so suddenly, but instead of dwelling on it, she mocks her. She taunts that it has been a long and tiresome struggle having to deal with the priest over and over. After her mockery, Isla raises her gaze to the heavens and begins praising a deity she calls the Dice Master. Back in Mynoghra, Takuto finds himself in a state of deep distress. He realizes that from now on, they will be facing massive enemies who wield all kinds of mechanics and systems far beyond what they had expected if they dare make the same mistakes again. Takuto knows that their nation will be completely annihilated the next time. In frustration, he slams his fist against the floor with all his strength. The sheer force shatters the ground beneath him, causing him to fall straight through. As he rises back up, Takuto is struck by a revelation. The damage he caused wasn't due to the floor being weak, it was from his own overwhelming strength. Curious, he decides to test this newfound power. He throws a single punch at a tree, and to his amazement, the tree shatters instantly. Only now does he realize that all along he himself has been an attack unit, though he never once considered it. This discovery does not bring him joy. Instead, it fills him with regret. If only he had realized his potential sooner, perhaps Isla would still be alive today. Later that day, ATU and the others return from their mission, and an emergency meeting is called. The main issue at hand is the twins' insubordination. Everyone expects harsh punishment to be declared, but to their shock, Takuto surprises them. He calmly announces that the twins will face no punishment whatsoever. ATU, unable to accept this, protests. She argues that if their nation shows such leniency, they will lose the ability to discipline anyone, and chaos will follow. But Takuto insists that he is the one who should be apologizing. Then, in front of everyone, he bows deeply. ATU and the Dark Elves look on in disbelief. Never in their lives did they think a king like Takuto would lower his head in apology. Afterward, Takuto makes a bold declaration. He promises that Isla will be brought back to life. ATU immediately objects, insisting that it is impossible to resurrect a hero while their nation remains in its current weakened state. But Takuto refuses to back down. He doesn't care how impossible it sounds. What matters to him is that Isla is revived, that the world is restored, and that the loved ones who were torn apart are reunited again. He recalls that this was the very promise he made during the Ascension victory. If this world truly follows the Eternal Nation system, Takuto believes with absolute certainty that they will be able to claim victory and make that promise a reality. But ATU strongly protests, warning that Takuto's plan is not practical. She explains that an Ascension victory means rewriting the world itself, and if he chooses to go through with it, the entire world will inevitably turn against him. Takuto, however, simply brushes aside her concern. He declares that he does not care because he will personally kill anyone who dares to stand in their way. As he speaks, a dark aura surrounds his body, radiating overwhelming pressure. He admits that the path ahead will be filled with hardship, but he is certain they can overcome it as long as everyone follows his orders exactly. Later that night, while Takuto is occupied making plans for future battles and defenses, the Dark Elves gather to hold a small funeral for Isla. The atmosphere is heavy, and most are drowning in sorrow. Yet, in the middle of the morning, the twins step forward. They boldly tell everyone not to be sad, reminding them that Takuto himself promised to bring Isla back. Their words, however, do little to restore hope. The others, still shaken by their recent losses, have lost much of their confidence. Many quietly wonder if they will even be able to keep up with Takuto's ambitious plans. Hidden in the shadows of the bushes, Takuto secretly watches the scene unfold. He sees their hesitation and doubts, but just then, the twins once again raise their voices, encouraging everyone not to lose faith so easily. They urge them to hold on to their confidence, to believe in King Takuto, and not to throw away their trust in him. Their words give the grieving elves a sudden boost of morale, surprising them. None of them ever imagined they would receive encouragement from children. From his hiding place, Takuto watches with quiet pride, his heart swelling at the loyalty of the twins. The next day, ATU walks into the throne room, only to find an unexpected sight. Takuto is in the middle of an emotional breakdown. The twins are at his side, consoling him as tears flow down his face. Takuto confesses that he feels terrible about losing control the previous day, admitting that he had scared everyone and let his emotions get the better of him. The twins pat him gently on the head, reassuring him that it is all right. They suggest that perhaps if he rephrases his words, he might feel better. Wiping his eyes, Takuto steadies himself and speaks again, this time with determination. He declares that he will never let down the people who believe in him and that together they will work toward achieving the Ascension victory. Atu and the others are moved by his sincerity. Hearing this renewed vow from their king, they rally behind him once more, vowing to follow him to the very end. Takuto lifts his head with confidence. In his heart, he knows he will be the one to claim victory in the end. After all, he is the original Eternal Nations player, the one destined to outlast them all.